Welcome to the Miller Report Real Clear Journalism. I'm Maggie Miller. Portland, once a flashpoint for national unrest, is back in headlines. But a new Real Clear Investigations report finds that the city's protests today don't look like the disruptive and violent clashes of 2020. Real Clear Investigations reporter Nancy Rommelmann went back to her home city of Portland, expecting tension and confrontation outside the local ICE facility. What she found instead was a handful of protesters, a few tents, and no signs of the 100-strong Antifa mob that once dominated the streets. Media that showed what looked like hand-to-hand combat between protesters and ICE agents led President Trump to deploy the Oregon National Guard. But this time around, the city is not on fire. It still shows a more complex story of memory and politics that reflects the legacy and scars of 2020. President Trump continues to invoke Portland as a symbol of chaos, but Nancy's firsthand account from the ground shows that's not the case today. How do we recognize a past that got out of hand, or the present that doesn't match? And what response should the Trump administration have taken? I'm joined now by Nancy Rommelmann to discuss her investigation and answer those questions. Nancy, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me back.
So explain to me what you saw when you went back to Portland this time around.
So, I went back not exactly knowing what to expect, because you go online or you look at the news and of course they're going to show you interesting things. They're not going to show you, look at this boring protest that's going on. So I really didn't know what to expect. What I found was a very, very small group of people. We're talking between 2 and 4 dozen in front of ICE in just south of downtown Portland. And they were sort of doing what I saw happen protest in Portland in 2020 on about 1,000th of the scale. There's the taunting of the agents. There was some sort of live action role playing, but it was really pretty chill, with the addition this time of more pro-ICE and pro-Trump protesters, which, let me tell you, in 2020, you did not see a lot of pro-Trump protesters in front of the federal building. But of the nights I was there was one night on a Saturday, of course, people aren't working, where you had about 200 people and a lot of press. Probably about 70 of the people there were press. But it was just nowhere even close to what I think people might imagine Portland is like now, or what they remember Portland was like then.
So how do we balance the memory of how out of control things did get in 2020 in Portland with what we're actually seeing on the ground today? And how should we have seen a response? Was the National Guard overkill? Kind of what do we think about all that?
So I believe, and as I write in the piece, which ran today, I believe the National Guard is overkill. And I believe that the Trump administration called them to Portland because there's the institutional memory of Portland being this protest center. Now, we've seen Trump send the Guard to other cities, sent them down to Los Angeles now. That was in June. And while there was some violence in LA, you had the Waymos on fire, you had a cop car was hit with, I think, cinder blocks, and there was some looting. LA, for the most part, did not burn itself down. And I have to think that there's a lot of memory of Los Angeles burning itself down. I've been there when Los Angeles has burned itself down. So I think Portland seemed a little more of a reliable bet to be like, look, we want to do these arrests and we need to keep people safe. And there's some people in front of ICE in Portland. You know what? I'm going to send the Guard in there. No one's going to complain because everybody is going to think, well, Portland, of course it's going to happen. I didn't see that happening. Now, has there been some violence there? Yes, there has been. But it is not, the cops can handle it. Also, there was an investigation by the Portland Justice Department, Oregon Justice Department. ICE had not been calling for backup. It's not like we're being surrounded here. You got to help us out. That had not been happening. So I think it was overkill. How do you balance it? Well, you need balanced reporting. And Maggie, we live in an environment where this is just not on many people's radar. They're going to spread the story they want spread. So that means honing in on the flag that's on fire, or just having the guy in the frog suit. So you have to actually open up the lens, try to talk to a lot of people, and show the people outside of Portland, here's what's happening here, and make up your own mind. I can tell you the people in Portland are like, dude, we do not need you here. And they're going to continue to do that, and they're going to continue to protest. And I hope and I think that it stays relatively peaceful.
I mean, it is a difficult thing because it's obviously like he kind of may have jumped the gun with sending the National Guard. Maybe a different path would have been understanding that there is that rhetoric of what happened in 2020 in Portland, and maybe having it in the back pocket, speaking with the ICE agents there, seeing what they need. Obviously, I guess hindsight is always a 2020. But like you mentioned, we've seen that video of the burning flag and the reporter who rescued it. Was that enough cause for the response we're seeing now? Or is that just the case, like you just mentioned, of unbalanced reporting? You're seeing what you want to see and you respond accordingly.
I have to tell you, that is such overkill. I was there when Nick Sortor, who calls himself an independent investigative journalist, he's very popular. He's got a huge, huge following, way more than me. And it was like, I was standing there and I see there was like a little bit of like flames. Like, let me tell you, flames at a protest is like saying, oh, there's ice cream in Baskin Robbins. Like, it's like not that big a deal. It's a pretty small flag. And Nick Sortor rushed in and grabbed it and stomped it out. It's about 45 seconds, all told. It was so uninteresting that I didn't even film it or take notes on it. He was then arrested for disorderly conduct because he was being pretty rowdy. And there was another guy with him that was kind of throwing punches. They let him go immediately. He was immediately released. And within 12 hours, Pam Bondi announced that there was going to be an investigation into the entire Portland Police Bureau because of Nick Sortor. And also, she called Sortor directly to apologize to him for the hard night. And then he goes to the White House and gives the president the flag. And he says, I'm really sorry you had that horrible night. Maggie, let me tell you something. I've been tear gassed. I've been roughed up. I never got a call from, the attorney general. Nick Sortor, and I'm sorry to put it this bluntly, is a tool of what the particular propaganda is wanted by the White House right now. Now, I am not saying that other parts of the media do not do exactly the same thing. In 2020, we saw the more liberal media absolutely in the bag for the protests, and they shot it that way. And there's the chyron with like mostly peaceful protests with the flames in the back. I was reporting what was actually happening. There was definitely chaos on the ground. And I was a small voice then because people wanted that to not be the story. They wanted it to be the protesters are only right and ever right. That was not the story. The idea that Nick Sortor is some sort of like hero is also not the story. It is a story that he, I guess, wants to tell. It's good for his brand. And for the administration, it works because it's, and nobody, first of all, burning flags is boring at this point. Okay, do I think you should burn the flag? No, but I'm sorry, it's legal to burn a flag. And it's just like, it's not really a story, but it's playing into the narrative that the White House wants to give now. So that's the story we're going to get now. I would like to say I didn't agree with it when the left was doing it. I don't agree with it when the right is doing it. So how do you tell people the story? You try to tell them the whole story and let them decide. This doesn't always make you popular, but that's not my job to be popular.
Could you also walk us through what happened with that Charlie Kirk group that was also there and how that'll fit into the broader picture of what was going on in Portland?
Absolutely fascinating. And I put this in the piece. I really do believe, and I think I can say this because I said it on the piece. I said it in the piece that, 2020 was the bitch mother. We're all trying to still understand. We're trying to understand how we all lost our minds and how we were encouraged to lose our minds and bad government policies and just a lot of things that happened. And I think the memory of 2020 is very much animating why we have the sort of almost the hope by some people that Portland is going to explode. We're working on that old playbook. But a lot has happened since then, including, incredibly tragically, Charlie Kirk being assassinated in September. So what do you have now at the protest? Yes, you've got the usual sort of Antifa light, and now you've got the cartoon characters, and you've got the normies and the 80-year-old fiddle player playing, old Pete Seeger songs, got all those people. And now you've got this group that are coming in, young men. We are Charlie Kirk shirts with a crucifix over the heart. And they are coming and they're standing there just quietly. And the other protesters are not quite sure what to do. As in one of the drafts I had, it's sort of like dogs sniffing around each other, like, what's happening here? And they are providing an ameliorating effect, a cooling effect, a balanced effect. Now, does that mean that things will never get hot between the groups? No. Could be the case where the Charlie Kirk bros, who are being so chill, even when the protesters are being really obnoxious and getting in their faces. I have this in the piece. They're just like, Jesus loves you. They're really trying, it seems to me, and I don't know a whole lot about Charlie Kirk, they're trying to walk, talk. And that's amazing. And what's also happening is that they seem to be a bit curious about the other protesters, and the protesters are curious about them. So instead of axiomatically hating the other side, they're actually kind of checking each other out, which says to me, it's not 2020, it's 2025. And time and tragedy and experience are making it a new day. I could be very hopeful about that, but that's what it looked like to me.
What are your key takeaways, and what do you want to leave people with most? Obviously, having been there and witnessed these protests both in 2020 and in 2025.
I really believe that we have become so polarized and we're so ready to hate the other guy. I've said this a lot. Like, don't hate your fellow Americans, okay? Get in your car, drive 100 miles, go meet people, go talk to people, and then tell me you hate your fellow Americans, because you won't. Yes, we have different beliefs. Sometimes we voted for different people. Yes, some people believe there should be no protest in front of ICE whatsoever. Let the ICE agents do their job. And then there's people that are like, no, it's my right to protest. I don't agree with what they're doing. Try to see the big picture. Don't automatically hate the other guy, because then we're mired. We're in the same playbook over and over and over again. We'll always have some of this, but you can change that. You can change that by opening it up and saying, okay, let me see what's actually going on here. Not just CNN, not just Fox, not the Antifa kid, not Nick Sortor. Let me actually take a look and then decide for myself.
That is some fantastic advice. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for your time.
Maggie, thanks again.
That was it for the Miller Report, Real Clear Journalism. I'm Maggie Miller. I'll see you next time.